Welcome back to the Rise to Her podcast. I'm Emily. I'm your host. I am an energetic leadership coach, a burnout and stress prevention coach, and I help you honor your human form so that you can live in your divine purpose. If this is your first time with us, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so stoked to have you. And if you're a returning listener, thank you. I love you very dearly. Today, we're starting with summer, baby. We're heading into summer. The solstice is coming. The energy is building. And every signal in this culture is telling you to go bigger, move faster, capitalize on the season, show up more. And I'm going to offer you something a little bit opposite of that, because this week we pulled the gem archetype. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that the archetypes I read at the start of each week are not random things. They are a mirror for us to go deeper so that we can grow our purpose, so that we can create a structure that allows us to receive divine creativity, dismantle the patriarchy within our systems, and create ease and abundance in a way that creates a more well world. And this card, this is asking something of you that the burnout system does not want you to do, because it is built on top of the backs of healers, helpers, women, minorities, people that are doing the work to hold a system, to hold a community. This week's archetype is going to ask you to get quiet enough to know what actually lights you, your soul, up. Stick with me. This is not going to be just some random overview. We're going to go deep. We're going to go into the dismantling here today. All right, let's dive in. The gem archetype, it goes by different names in different traditions. Some of these names are going to be inner treasure, inner light, the daemon in Greek mythology. And this is not like a dark entity, but it is a animating force, okay? This specific intelligence that your soul arrived with. Anyone in my community knows I talk a lot about soul code energetics, because a lot of us, when we talk about what we value, what we're talking about is core needs. That's why I built the soul code extraction, which is a beautiful place for you to start. It's a really simple but powerful framework to help you notice what your core needs are and how to extract what your soul values are, that soul purpose, that divine connection of how to create the path of least resistance instead of building everything out of scarcity, fear, people pleasing. That's a beautiful way to start. That's going to be linked in the show notes. It's just $27 and you get lifetime access, and any upgrades is a really awesome thing to do. But I digress. The specific intelligence that your soul arrived with is the gem. It is the thing that when you're in contact with it, it is going to make time dissipate, and it will make sure that your body feels like it's doing what it's exactly built for. How many of you can say that? Say that I am living in alignment. My body feels soul truth. Like, this feels like me. If you're like, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, or absolutely not, this podcast is going to break down how to get in touch with that soul knowing. But most of us, especially if you're here, I can guarantee that you have some type of vague sense of what that purpose is. You've probably felt it in flashes or in meditations, or when you're doing some of that inner work, you're like, yes, right? You were doing a project that pulled you forward, that really made you feel like, this is my purpose. Maybe it was a conversation that you had with someone and the ideas just came flying through faster than you've ever been able to receive them before. Maybe it was a morning, and I know I've had these, when you woke up and you thought, yes, this is the right direction, even though you really couldn't logically explain why. That feeling that I'm talking about, that is the gem. And the reason most of us aren't building our businesses and our careers from it is because, no, it's not because we're not spiritual enough. No, it's not because we haven't done enough inner work, shadow work, whatever all the gurus may be telling you that you're doing. It is because we've been looking for the gem in the wrong places. We've been looking to the external to tell us what's shiny, what's bright. Social media is particularly brutal place to go looking for your purpose because Instagram will show you 12 people who seem to have it all figured out. Their niche is really crisp. Their offer is clear. Their content is perfect. They're showing up. They're so pretty. Maybe they have the Botox. They have the look, the clothes, the home, the vacations. Maybe they're flying first class and you're going, oh, but that's what I want, right? That's not a bad thing to want those things, right? But that is the consequences, not in a bad way. That is the byproduct. But if you're not in alignment, what does it matter? If you're not living your purpose, because most of you here have already played the game. You've already likely gotten a degree. You did something that externally people would be like, oh, that's a good job. Why are you changing? Oh, why are you doing that? Why does that make you so burnt out? People would kill to have that, right? It's because you were out of alignment with that soul code. And we're able to get back with the gem, that knowing that full felt soul truth. We are going to then be able to have a clear, shiny object that isn't there to distract you, but instead it's there to really guide you, right? And maybe you see those people on Instagram or social media and you try to reverse engineer it. You join their programs. You say, oh, this is going to be the thing that gives me insight. I know I've done this. You probably have too. But here's what that choice is doing to you first biologically. When you spend time in comparison, your nervous system begins to read it as a threat because you're measuring yourself against external systems, which trigger you into survival mode. And your brain is now problem solving from cortisol instead of from divine clarity, from creativity. Okay. And so any decision that you make from that state, any offer, any path that you build, any content you create, it is going to carry that frequency. It's going to feel like grasping. When we're out of alignment with the gem archetype or in the shadow of it, we are in a grasping state. We're in an envious state, a greed state. But the gem here, that clarity is produced in contrast, not in an environment where we're comparing. It is produced in contrast. Those are very different things. Comparison versus contrast. Contrast is when you're going to encounter something. Maybe it's a piece of music, a conversation, a book, a memory, and your body has a specific response. It's this like, oh, I lit up to that, right? It's going to be where the dark and the light shine and expand something for you. I wrote down, and Kim Kranz writes it in the book for this card, about a glimmer, right? That thing that catches your attention, a yes or a very clear no. Both of those things are data, and that data is where your gem is going to be living. Comparison, which a lot of us have been doing, is going to take you further from your gem, while contrast is going to bring you home to the gem. If you're in my world, that I can guarantee that you have that vision of a more well world, that you look outside, you look on the news, and you see the pain that is being perpetrated in the community, in the world. And you're like, Emily, that is darkness. How do I commit to building a business, to building a career, to my purpose when there's so much struggle out there? Well, baby, we're going to get into it, because that question right there is going to unlock a lot for you. Because there's this heaviness that people are carrying around right now, because contrast isn't just like a personal practice that we see on social media. It's happening in the external world on a scale that's really hard to ignore, especially right now when access to news is greater than ever and it's confusing. You can get information really quick with ChatGPT or any type of AI, right? So we are living in a time of massive contrast. The political climate, the rollbacks on rights, the noise around what women are allowed to do with their bodies, with their time, their money, their ambitions, all of this is really loud for us. And for a lot of spiritually conscious people, especially those building businesses rooted in purpose, this creates a very specific kind of depletion. Because you care, you're paying attention. And every time you open your phone or you watch the news, there's more evidence that the system is not only broken, it is doubling down it is creating a whole hell of a lot of contrast. So here's what I want to offer to you. And I want to be really direct about this. The darkness in the external world is also contrast. It is showing you in a very sharp relief what you're actually for, what you're building in opposition to, what you want to exist in the world so badly that you're willing to do the uncomfortable work of creating it. This contrast, this pressure creates the gem. The patriarchal system, and I mean this in the specific structural sense, has always required women to be too exhausted to lead, too anxious to trust ourselves. We were literally told during the witch hunts that the devil speaks through the senses. From an early age, our system has been colonized. It has been put down. It has been told you can't trust that because that's bad. We've been too distracted by survival to build anything that lasts. That burnout is not incidental here, okay? The financial, precarious situations we find ourselves in is not incidental. The way that we've been taught to measure our worth by output, by approval, by how we look, that is designed. This isn't a conspiracy theory, guys. This is centuries of a structure that knew exactly what it was doing. And when you can see that, it's going to change the meaning behind what you're building. Your business doesn't just become an income. It can become a counterpoint to that structure. And the clarity that you've been working towards of like, what's my next move? That doesn't become just a personal development. It starts to become the thing that makes you harder to keep in the cycle. And that's a threat, guys. It's a threat to the system. And we're saying, let it burn. But I want to give you this insight, this mindset, so that you can then later, we're going to talk about how to integrate this mindset into practical steps for dismantling the patriarchy within our systems, how we can begin to create the gem. But I don't want you to get stuck using the darkness as a fuel in a way that actually keeps you in burnout, right? Like, I'm just so angry. I'm so tired. I'm so done with the system that I just give everything and burn out, right? Because that is energetically in the wounded as well. And don't get me wrong, that rage, that anger, that fieriness, that is sacred too. That is feminine rage. We want that, but we want it in a system and a structure that supports instead of just depletes it, right? So if you stay in that darkness that is your fuel, you begin to build from that anger, from urgency, from a need, and I'm giggling because this is something I've done for so long, a need to prove the system wrong, right? And that energetically feels very different in our system. And that system just runs the show. It's fear, but it's a different label, right? And the gem is what you build when you metabolize the contrast and found what it's pointing you towards. The anger is telling you something really powerful. It's telling you that something's wrong. The gem is going to tell you what is right for your soul, for your path, for the least resistance. What is yours specifically to hold? What you're here to actually contribute. So practically, what does that mean for you this week? When you feel the weight of what is happening in the world, and you will, don't either white-knuckle past it or disappear into it. That is the contrast of only A or B. I want to encourage you to sit with it. Can you sit with it and start to ask, what does this make clear for me? What does this confirm about why I'm doing what I'm doing? What am I more certain about now than I was before? That's metabolizing, integrating contrast. That's alchemization. That is practical magic. That is letting the darkness produce the gem rather than just burn you the F out. And if you're finding that the news cycle, the political stress, the constant low-level dread of every moment is bleeding into our work, and maybe it's making your decisions feel harder, you're feeling a little tired, you're just like, oh, is this even worth it? Maybe your creativity feels at an all-time low. You're like, I just don't even know what to do right now. Nothing feels inspiring. Nothing feels creative to me. Maybe you're second guessing whether any of this matters. I don't even know why I got into this anyways. That is a signal that I am asking you with so much love to pay attention to. I'm not telling you to judge yourself for it. I am not telling you to shame yourself for it. Just get curious. Curiosity has been one of the biggest things to unlock my shame. I wonder why I do that. Or, oh, I got really triggered by that. That's interesting. Why? Okay. Because something in the system got to you. It found a crack, and that crack usually runs right through a place where your core needs have been doing the work that your gem, your soul code, was supposed to. And I'm inviting you this week to see those specific places, to see where the crack has been running through and causing a little bleeding, causing a little touchiness. Can't talk about this week's energy without talking about how we're entering into the height of summer, midsummer, the solstice. And across cultures, across time, guys, this is a huge threshold. It is the longest day that we are entering into on June 21st. It is the peak of the light. And what the peak traditionally invited us into was full presence, gratitude, right? The kind where you begin to allow yourself to feel joy without immediately going, okay, what goal does this serve? Oh yeah, I attained this, right? It is being in full total presence, letting the sunlight sink into you. And doing that is a lot harder than it sounds, because if you've been in burnout, if you've been in stress cycles, if you've been in that survival, you have spent years, maybe even decades, producing, performing to get your needs met, pushing to obtain a goal, to finally have enough money, to finally get your business where you want it to be, to finally feel like the money you spent in school loans was worth it, or all the hours you put in finally hit, right? And joy in that state, it can feel weird, especially those of us that care so deeply for the world. It can even feel suspicious. This is not the time, right? And your body starts to mistrust what joy feels like. Like it might cost you something, like you need to feel guilty, like you're taking from someone else. And that guardedness, it makes a lot of sense to our bodies. But that guardedness also keeps the gem archetype underground. If you've been listening to this podcast and thinking, this is exactly how I want to run my business, that is your sign to go deeper. Rooted is my monthly membership for entrepreneurs and leaders who are done running their business and their career on empty. Inside, we work with energetic patterns of each season, pull the archetypes, read what's moving, and use all of it to make clearer decisions, reduce the stress that's been quietly draining you, and build towards your vision in a way that actually feels like you and feels deeply connected to source and spirit. Most of us have spent years mastering the strategy and performing really high. The plans, the goals, the hustle. Rooted is the other half. It is the part that makes the strategy work without costing you everything. It's $27 a month, and you can try it free for 7 days. Go to risetoher.com/rooted or click the link in the show notes. Come get rooted with us. I'll see you inside. And so as we enter into the summer solstice energy, Litha is asking you to experiment, to play specifically, to follow what is sparking for you without needing to know where it's going to lead, without needing to know what is going to be the outcome of it. And I am not telling you this as a productivity strategy, but it is, however, the most direct path to clarity that I know. Playing and getting curious. When you find your gem, I can guarantee you your decisions will become so much freaking easier because you have your orientation point. You know what you're a yes to. And that is going to change every single day of your week. So I want to make this a little more concrete for you, because this is where the burnout piece really shows up for us. When you do not have contact with your gem, with what genuinely lights you up, what brings you joy, what brings you those glimmers at the level of your soul code, you default to building from your core needs. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And your core needs in the framework that I use, they're just simply about survival. They are the thing your nervous system learned to optimize for when you were young. Safety, approval, control, achievement, belonging, right? Freedom. Those are not bad things, but they are simple things that we all need. And they make terrible business strategies. They make terrible purpose paths because they're reactive. You're always responding to a perceived threat, even when nothing is truly threatening you. Maybe someone offers you an opportunity and it doesn't feel right exactly, but you say yes because your financial pressure is so loud right now, you have to do the logical thing. I say that with quotes if you're not watching the YouTube video. That's a core need running a decision. Maybe you spend 3 hours creating content or filming in a format you absolutely despise because your own ideas, maybe you're like, oh my God, I'm going to say the wrong thing. Maybe you don't feel confident in your voice. That's a core need. You want to feel safe. You want to feel accepted. None of this is you being a bad person, a bad entrepreneur, a bad leader. It is simply your conditioning. It is the system working exactly as it was designed. Because a woman, a leader, someone who wants a more well world, that person who is able to trust their own signal and build from their soul code is much harder to keep in the cycle of constant output and constant depletion. Because they can say no with confidence. They can hold a boundary without going, oh my God, is everyone going to leave me? And this is what I talk about when I talk about the patriarchal operating system in business and in decision making. It is a structure, and it runs on you not trusting yourself long enough to build from your gem or your, AKA, your joy, what lights you up. Soul code extraction is specifically the work of decoding that. It is not just an intellectual understanding of, yes, my soul has a purpose. It is actually seeing where your core needs have been driving your decisions and what your soul's actual blueprint is for. And it helps you understand those decisions. That blueprint has always been there. This is not human design. This is not astrology. This is not gene keys. This is something much more specific to soul code that helps you then apply all of those other tools. Because the conditioning got really loud, and this is a way to pull back. This is a base layer that everything else can build onto. It doesn't matter how much inner work you've done, how long you've been in spirituality. If you can't say, this is my orientation point, this is my truth, and we're going to get into that in the next few weeks. We're going to really dive into truth, naked, unabashed truth. This is where you need to start. Soul code. You can get the link via show notes, $27, lifetime access. And if you've been feeling really uncomfortable lately, in the past few weeks have felt like it's pushing you, just know that this is the energetics coming through. After this is published, we've just experienced a blue moon. I saw where someone wrote just once in a blue moon, right? It is a really intense energy pushing you to shed the distractions, making you get a path and send your energy to it. But you don't want to be on the path without a direction. But you do have to be willing to take the first step. And sometimes that's going to feel like you don't know where you're going. There's pressure underneath the surface. That is what's happening. It is all in our greatest good. This month, we had 2 full moons. We had the blue moon, that rare energy, and it's going to continue to process over the next few weeks. That uncomfortableness, it is still moving through. It is still present in our bodies. And so rather than trying to resolve that uncomfortableness and get back to baseline, or what people say, oh, I just want to feel regulated. You being responsive, you having emotions, you responding, that is your body trying to regulate. So this week is a perfect time to allow that uncomfortableness, that pressure to take you somewhere new, to allow you to experience joy, play, pleasure like you've never had before. The contrast is building, is putting pressure on so that you can then see, this thing lights me up. One of my teachers, Chaney Nichols, talks about the inner quest of the soul, especially related to this blue moon. And I love that framing because it makes it sound like what I believe life is, an adventure. It's not this crisis where I just need to heal all the time. Your life is not something to manage. It is simply a big adventure, a quest, and it's so fun. So when you think of like about a video game, you don't just follow the main storyline. You take the side quests because that's where all the interesting stuff lives. That's where you find the things that you didn't know that you were really looking for. The gem is going to show up on the side quests. The things that feel so fun, so playful, so, oh, that's cool. I didn't know I was going to get that opportunity. Take it. It shows up when you have the courage to deviate from the expected path. I want you to start to notice what calls your energy. There's no specific map to your gem. That's the whole point. Because someone else's map is not going to get you there. And I say that as someone who spent a long time following maps that made a lot of sense on paper. I mean, I had my master's degree by the time I was 22. I was engaged by 25. But then guess what? Something felt absolutely uncomfortable. The pressure started to build. And I'm really proud of the past version of myself who was able to call off her marriage, who was able to rebuild her career, who was able to say, I'm going to take a really big swing at that next opportunity. Because I so desperately wanted to retrust my body, wanted to feel like the powerful witch, intuitive guide that I am. And so I took the swing. I reconnected to the soul code. That's how I derived the soul code extraction through this own work, through both health behavior and magic and energetics, to give you something that goes beyond the rational, the logical, into something much deeper, being able to live in accordance with your soul contract. Okay, so here's where we can take all of this and make it actionable. Because trust me, I love the beautiful concepts, but they're not going to translate to how you spend your Tuesday morning or your Wednesday afternoon, okay? So the first thing, I want you to audit your week for glimmers. If you're inside of Rooted, you know that we have started working through the portal of joy, where we start to decode and upgrade our system, our human system, our brain, and how it responds to joy, how it responds to opportunities, right? You're going to spend the next 2 months inside of Rooted working through that. If you're not inside of Rooted, you can join for a 7-day free trial. So Soul Code and Rooted, those are your two places to go. They're really affordable. I made sure that they were accessible. And if you're like, Emily, I absolutely cannot afford that, $27, or I can't afford the $27 a month for Rooted, reach out to me, Emily at Rise to Her. It's so important that you're in there, okay? Because we're going to be able to upgrade the human system so that you can achieve your divine purpose, your divine code, so that you can be an energetic master, which means working with the natural rhythms around you to prevent burnout, to be able to play in the 3D in a way that's fun, okay? So first thing, audit your week for glimmers. If you're inside of Rooted, you're going to be walking through day by day on how to do that on a very practical level. These glimmers, they can be really small ones where you felt like a spark, where something was like, oh my God, that was so beautiful. That tasted so good. Maybe it was a topic or an opportunity that made you just sit up really straight. A problem that you wanted to stay with, right? An idea that you had in the shower. I want you to start noticing those and write them down, because they are not random. That is how nature, source, spirit communicates. Second way to make this applicable is follow the irritation. When you find yourself envious of someone, maybe their business, how clear and confident they are, their positioning, their income, pay attention to the specifics. What exactly are you envious of? That is precious. That precision is information about what you want. Envy, as we talked about earlier, is the gem in the shadow, and it is pointing you at itself from behind a wall of comparison. So you can just reverse engineer it. And the third, and this one is for those of you who are building something right now, offers, content, a business, slow down the decision making and check where it's coming from. Before you say yes to something, before you create something, before you put something out there, ask, is this coming from clarity or pressure? What does that feel like when I put my hands on my body What does clarity feel like? For me, and I'm going to teach this inside of a workshop, Wine with Witches, if you're in Portland, Oregon. Oh, it's going to be so fun. We're going to be talking about how to have intuitive clarity in the body. But for me, that is this really strict, and I say strict as in like it feels the same every time, line of energy that goes from the base of my spine all the way up through my throat. And it's like, this is my knowing, right? This is a yes. With a no, I feel more of a pushback, a pull away, like, nope, it's not what I want. Okay. So slow down, check in on your decision making. Does it feel like expansion? Like, my body lights up. Does it feel like, but please, like almost you're contracting, but reaching at the same time, like, please give it to me. Your nervous system, your body is intelligent. And the gym here this week is going to continue to speak through sensation. That's why we play in the portal of joy with senses, with possibility, with aromas, with feelings, with pleasure. The logic is not for this. We already know how to do that. And if you're finding after you do this audit that most of your decisions are coming from pressure, from that need to survive, for you to prove that you deserve to be here, that's worth looking at too. That's the core need cycle in action. That's where soul code extraction does what nothing else has done for people I've worked with. It gets underneath that pattern and shows you what your path of least resistance is, what your things that you can trust that are going to be consistent for you over time. I want to touch on one more thing before we close, and that is finding your gem is a feminine principle. What does that mean? That has nothing to do with gender. I need you to know anytime I talk about masculine, feminine energetics, it has nothing to do with gender ideology. That is a dangerous concept that I do not take or teach. But it is a feminine principle because it is receptive. It asks you to be still enough to receive the signal, to follow that curiosity without saying it needs to be this outcome. It means to let creativity be a thing that happens through you, that is channeled through you, not something that you have to force or squeeze out of yourself. Building from your gem, actually using it to structure your work, your offers, your schedule, how you approach leadership. That requires the masculine principle: structure, boundaries, consistency, the willingness to hold the container so that creative energy has somewhere to go. When only one of those is running the show, something is going to break down. All structure, no soul is a burnout system. All flow and no container is why the creative person with all those ideas cannot build anything sustainable. The balance is what makes this work generative. When your gem is guiding the direction, because it's produced from contrast, it's produced from pressure, and your system begins to hold the space, being able to build in alignment to take those action steps, those don't feel unattainable because you have this clear creativity flow and a structure to send it into. And it becomes a possibility that it's going to last now. So that's your invitation for the week. I want you to just start asking what your gem is, what lights you up, what sparks interest. Pay attention to the contrast and reverse engineer it. Go looking for the gem in your own experience. It's in there. It's been there this whole time. That's what I've got for you this week. If it has landed and you want to go deeper on what your specific soul code actually is, soul code extraction is the place for that. You can get access, $27 in the link below in the show notes, soul code. And then if you want to learn how to apply the soul code daily in your decisions and learn how to read the energy around you so that you can make decisions without a patriarchal lens, one that is intuitive, one that is supported, one that feels safe, we do that inside of Rooted. Energetic Mastery, learning to work with rhythm, with the Wheel of the Year, with our guides, with soul. You can join with a 7-day free trial. All right, this is not a framework that you're borrowing. This is yours that was specifically coded for you. Take care of yourself this week. Follow the glimmers. Trust your discomfort. I'll be back here with you next time. All right. Bye. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, reflecting, and rising into more of who you really are. If this episode sparked something inside of you or reminded you you're not alone, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. To keep the conversation going, come hang out with me on Instagram @RiseToHer. I always love hearing what's resonating for you. And if you're craving a space to explore intuitive, soul-led living with others who get it, our community is growing and you're always welcome. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your rhythm, and keep rising.